Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Good afternoon, yeah! Welcome everyone to TEDxTupper Lake. It is finally here. Just round of applause. One more time. Let's get this going. Fantastic. Well, thank you again for being here today. We have an amazing program planned. But my name is Leanne. I'm the Interpretive Programs Manager here at the Wild Center, and with me.
My name is Nick Gunn. I'm the Marketing Director here at the Wild Center.
And we are thrilled because we have an amazing program. Not only is the program great, but we are surrounded by this beautiful place, this space in nature, where nature and innovation can really come together.
Now, whether you're a TED head, that's an actual phrase, I looked it up, or this is your first experience with this kind of event, we hope that you come away feeling inspired and energized for what's to come.
So we're going to hear from 13 amazing speakers. Each bring a unique perspective on our theme, Natural Connections. They're going to be exploring the interconnectedness of nature and humanity. So from the art of storytelling and indigenous knowledge, and to the science of wetlands and the ways that we connect through creativity and curiosity, we're going to explore just how intertwined these concepts are today.
Yeah, we've got an incredible evening ahead of us, filled with ideas worth spreading. And we're honored to host this TEDx event right here in the heart of the Adirondacks. TEDx, yeah, let's hear it.
Tupper Lake, come on.
TEDxTupper Lake is all about exploring the theme of natural connections. Connections between us and the world around us, between people and ideas, and between the past, the present, and the future.
Now, natural connections can mean a lot of different things to different people. On the surface, there's not an obvious connection between modern dance and watershed ecology, like the symbolic relationship of the subterranean root network of trees and mycelium. Some connections may not be obvious to the naked eye, but we believe through the course of this evening, those connections are going to become more apparent.
Yeah, now before we get into the fun stuff, let's go through a few housekeeping details to make sure everyone here has the best possible experience tonight. First, we ask you to kindly silence your phones, your tablets, your pagers, if you're still hanging on to that from 1993. Anything that might ring or beep or boop, silence or please turn off.
Awesome. To go with that, tonight's program is being live streamed to the world. So hello everyone at home. I want to point out we've got Paul on camera over here and we've got Matt on camera over here. I know.
Give it up.
Round of applause for them. So to help make sure our TED videos make it to the TED website, we have a big favor to ask. The big thing is when we have speakers on stage, please remain seated. If your head pops into the lens, TED's gonna cut it, okay? So we wanna make sure we have the highest quality video to submit for our speakers to TED. So please remain seated. Emergencies do happen though. So if you do need to get up, if the bathroom's calling, that's okay. Try to wait until after the speaker and go through one of the transitions. When you come back into the theater, if someone's up here talking, please wait at the back until they're done, right over here, and then you're welcome to come and take your seat as soon as they leave the stage and conclude their talk. This is going to ensure we have high quality video and our speakers have an amazing audience in front of them.
Now, the fun part for all of you in the house tonight is you're going to get a special behind-the-scenes look at how those really slick, nice-looking TED Talk videos get produced. I'm going to pull back the curtain already and let you know that I am wearing makeup for the first time ever in my life. That is how serious we are taking this. But with any performance in front of a live audience, of course, there's an opportunity for a tragedy or catastrophe. I could very easily knock over one of these letters. A microphone could fall off. Who knows what could happen? Luckily, we can edit that out in post. But in real time here tonight, we encourage you to provide support for the speakers by clapping or cheering or giving a little whoop whoop.
So let's put it into practice. Nick here with his big feet. Imagine that he trips and takes out this entire TEDx logo. How would we support Nick in that moment? Can you show me?
Totally
okay,
realistic,
that's
by the
good.
way.
Let's
Totally
take it to
realistic.
here. How would we support Nick? There we go. Fantastic. That is the energy we need tonight for our speakers, okay? So bring that with you.
Lastly, we have an amazing reception planned for you all between blocks 2 and 3 in the Great Hall. We've got local food and cold drinks. We've got live music from High on the Hog, an interactive sound experience from Eric Sturr, a Tai Chi session with Josie D, live animal encounter selfie stations, which, by the way, let me put in a plug. If you do take a wonderful photo tonight at our selfie station, please tag us using the hashtag TEDxTupper Lake. Okay. Now, none of this would be possible without the support of a bunch of people. First and foremost, we'd like to thank the organizing team who helped put this together with our fearless leaders, Jen Heseltine and Kim Preshoff in the back. You can see them, please give them a wave. They are behind the scenes tonight getting all of our speakers ready. Thank you to them. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Adirondack Frontier, the Adirondack Land Trust, the Reynolds Group, and Tai Chi with Josie D. Also, this event is supported by New York State's Empire Development in the I Love New York division of tourism. Also, the Wild Centers programs are made possible by the New York Council on the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature.
And lastly, we want to thank our speakers. We have 13 amazing individuals who have been up long hours over months writing these talks, practicing, rehearsing, fine-tuning. They're gonna make it look easy for all of us. But we can attest that they have really shown dedication and commitment to this process. They are thought-provoking, inspiring, and every other positiving word you could possibly think of. And we really cannot wait for you to hear them. So without further ado, let's get this thing started, okay? Let's do it. Okay, so first, help me please welcome on our first speaker, Gujijuni Fox. She is an artist, an award-winning filmmaker, and an educator from the Mohawk territory of Akwesasne. Her films are focused on empowering stories of Indigenous women. Today, she will open up this event with the Haudenosaunee Thanksgiving address and her talk, A Dish with One Spoon. So please give a warm welcome to Gujijuni Fox.
Sego everybody, Gujijuni Yungyats, Waxkalewage, Akwesasne, Nuent Gidilo. My name is Gujijuni, which means I make flowers. I'm Bear Clan from Akwesasne, Mohawk Nation territory. I'm an artist, educator, and a filmmaker. For the Haudenosaunee people, one of the most important teachings we have is our Ohonda Galiwadekwa, which is also referred to as the opening Thanksgiving address. We use this to open and close our ceremonies, important gatherings, and also just to greet every day. I'm going to give a short version today in Ganya Geha, and then I'm going to translate it into English. And I invite you all to join me. So if you're in agreement with me, you can acknowledge by saying to. Can you try that? To. Good. So agwego aska di dawahwe nuni ne ngwat nigola dana de tinoaladas ne ungwet sunga. We give thanks to the people. De tinoaladas ne yakini sta hunja. We give thanks to our Mother Earth. De tinoaladas ne ohonde sunga. We give thanks to the grasses. De tinoaladas ne ojinua sunga. We give thanks to all of the insects. De tinoaladas ne onegat sunga. We give thanks to all of the waters. De tinoaladas ne gojunt sunga. We give thanks to all of the fish. De tinoaladas ne onunquat sunga. We give thanks to all of the medicine plants. De tinoaladas ne gundelia. We give thanks to all of the animals. De tinoaladas ne gayantosala. We give thanks to all of the food plants. De tinoaladas ne oguilet sunga. We give thanks to all of the trees. De tinoaladas ne ojita angua. We give thanks to all of the birds. De tinoaladas ne gayeli ni gawelage. We give thanks to the four winds. De tinoaladas ne yatisatagun ala diwelas. We give thanks to our grandfather thunders. Dachinoaladas ne sungwat ji'a gyokeneha galakwa. We give thanks to our elder brother the sun. De tinoaladas ne yatisatagun sataneka galakwa. We give thanks to our grandmother moon. De tinoaladas ne ojistanunquat sunga. We give thanks to all of the stars. De tinoaladas ne gayeli ni agwedege. We give thanks to the four protectors. Dachinoaladas ne sungwayandizo. We give thanks to our creator. Tonia doak ne agwat nigola. And our minds are one. To. So thanks for your help with that. I once heard, that was a really, really short opening. I once heard one of our men at home do an opening that lasted almost 2 hours long. He took the time to give thanks to all the individual medicines, all the individual insects, the trees and the birds, for all that they do for us. I want you to close your eyes for a second. Close your eyes. Think back to your morning. Did you hear the birds sing? Did you pay attention to the beautiful trees in the mountains? Did you feel the sun on your skin? I'm seeing a lot of people nod their head yes, so that's really good. You can open your eyes. I asked my grandson this the other morning when I was practicing this with him, and he said, I was just in a hurry to catch the bus. I think in this fast-paced world that we live in, a lot of times we forget to take the time to give thanks to our relatives that are in the natural world. I'm honored to be invited here to this TEDx here in Tupper Lake at the Wild Center. It's the ancestral homelands of my people, the Haudenosaunee. The topic for this TED Talk is natural connections. Audrey Shenandoah Gaha, who was an Onondaga clan mother, said we have no word for nature in our language. Nature in English seems to refer to something that is separate from human beings. When I was a young girl, I remember going to Longhouse, and it would be packed in there. And when we'd be dancing, the floors would just shake. And I remember looking forward to getting some of that strawberry drink and corn soup that the elder women would make. Our ceremonies follow a seasonal cycle, and we give acknowledgement to all of our life givers. We pay attention to when the sap flows from the maple trees. We listen for the thunders when they come back in the spring. We watch out for those tiny little strawberries when they're ready in the field, and when our three sisters are ready in the gardens. I didn't realize back then how lucky we were to still have our ceremonies and to still have our elders speak in the language until I became a mother myself. So I'm a mother of 4 and a duda to 8 grandchildren. This is my handsome son, Yuhelza, and he's offering words of greetings to his nephew at his birth in our Ganyageha language. I'm going to share that now. He's first introducing him to his family in the room. And then he goes on to introduce him to all his relatives in the natural world, starting on the earth, on up into the sky, pretty similar to how we did this morning with the opening address. This is how our relationship begins with the natural world at birth. And we carry on in this relationship while we're here on the earth until we return back to the stars. Our people recorded our important events and agreements into wampum belts. And the wampum beads like this were made from quahog and whelk shells that come from the ocean. This particular belt is called the dish belt, or the dish with one spoon. And it was originally an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people. And it predates European contact. Our elders are really wise when they were making decisions, always thinking ahead 7 generations to the effect it was going to have on us. The purple beads that are in the middle represent a dish, which is a symbol of our Mother Earth and everything that comes from her. The little white square, the little white rectangle in the middle represents a beaver tail. And it symbolizes that we're all going to eat out of this bowl collectively with one spoon. Tuscarora scholar Rick Hill talks about the 3 agreements that are embedded in this wampum belt. The first one is don't take more than you need. The second one is always leave something for others. And the last one is keep the dish clean. Our elders in my community remember a time when they could drink from the river. Back when everybody would collect their own medicines, have their own gardens, and they wasted very little. In our community of Akwesasne, in the 1980s, we were declared a Superfund site. We had industries that were upriver and upstream that were polluting our water and our air. There was a snapping turtle that was found in our river that was so full of PCBs that it was classified as toxic waste. We were warned not to eat the fish. It affected our waters, our fish relatives, our animal relatives, our medicine relatives, and was even found in the breast milk of our mothers through research done by Gaji Cook, who is a midwife from my community. Western ideology places man above nature, with nature being here for the exploitation of man. And that has had a really devastating effect on our Mother Earth and continues so today. This is a video installation that was here at the Wild Center last year as part of their Climate Solutions exhibit. So that's a big ceramic bowl about this big. And I have a video that's being projected into the bowl, and I'm going to share it with you now. It's called The Dish. We were warned not to eat from the dish with a knife, because when you eat with a knife, you're eventually going to cut yourself. In my work as a filmmaker, I focus on stories of Indigenous women that are stepping into their purpose and power. I'm going to show you a clip from one of my latest films called Denjida Wakwe, which means we pick it up again. And it features Jessica Shenandoah. She's doing really amazing work in our community, bringing back land-based knowledge, the things that our grandmothers used to do and create from the earth.
My mom was the main one who helped guide me with what I'm doing now. Anytime we'd go pick medicine, we leave an offering, we give thanks, because they're giving us their power, their energy. It's the first thing that I teach when I go on my medicine walks.
The next clip that I'm going to show is from a movie that's going to be coming out next year. It's called Gana Uwe, Original Seeds. And it features Haudenosaunee women that are doing work in seed and food sovereignty. The clip has Becky Webster, who is Oneida from Wisconsin. She's reconnecting with her heirloom seeds and really inspiring her community to reconnect with our indigenous foods and to plant and process those.
The seeds have really changed our lives. I was an attorney for my tribe, and I thought that's what I'm going to do. And I think that it really helped pull me into a different direction. And we started to garden. We pulled our kids out of school to homeschool them. My husband left his job, all so that we could build our home and our lives around our seeds.
Two very inspiring women, and I'm really honored to be able to share their stories through film. Both of them have that connection to the natural world, and you can tell that they have that respect and care. They think about those seeds and those medicines as their relatives, and it makes a difference. Indigenous people are 5% of the world's population, and we're protecting 80% of the biodiversity left in the world. I hope that you remember the 3 teachings from this bout. The first one, don't take more than you need. The second one, always leave some for others. And last, keep the dish clean. And I challenge you the next time that you're outside, and a lot of you already do this because I heard you shaking your head earlier, to take the time to stop and to give your thanks and acknowledgement to all of our relatives in the natural world. And since I started with the opening address, I'm going to end by saying, Wat ganamaladas ne agwego yayanala nene ohonjaginagwa danagalonhyaginagwa. We give thanks to all the beautiful things that are on the earth, on up into the sky. Tonya doak ne gwa, and our minds are one. Toa. Nyawa.
Thank you so much for starting us off this evening. I couldn't help but draw some parallels yesterday when I was listening to that talk to our next speaker, who's also a very inspiring young woman. Our next speaker's name is Jenna, and she's inspired me since the day I met her. But I'll start with this. Her commitment to empowering others is really seen through her everyday actions. The smile on her face when she walks through the room, her positive attitude when she passes you by, and the fact that she goes above and beyond in almost everything that I've seen her accomplish. She has this gravity-like pull that connects others to the outdoors. Now, I don't know about all of you, but when I was in middle school and high school, my free time was not necessarily spent developing a children's book. I might have been using my time in other ways. Now, Jenna is the exception to the rule here. And she is the author of the book, the Explore More Challenge activity book for kids and families, to help connect kids and families together outside. She is not only an author, but a high school student and an active member of the Wild Center's Youth Climate Program. Jenna truly illustrates the enthusiasm, foresight, and passion from young adults today who are working to make a difference within their communities. So without further ado, let us give a warm, rousing welcome to Jenna Odlin.
Imagine a world where every child has an intimate understanding of the natural world, and where that bond creates a lifelong connection with nature. How many of you had a special place where you would go explore as a kid? A lot of us, right? Take a moment and just remember that place. Now for me, that place was the River Legacy Nature Center. Growing up in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, you might not expect for there to be much wilderness. But there, nestled in a bend of the Trinity River, is where my grandparents would send me to nature camp every summer. There, alongside all the other 4-year-olds, I would catch plastic fish from a little tub, collect all the pretty rocks that I saw on the trail, and squeal with the excitement of touching a shed snakeskin. After camp, I would sit by this pond with this mom, eating animal crackers and peanut butter sandwiches, and telling her about all the cool things that I learned that day. That's where my love of nature sprouted, and that's why nature education is so important. Richard Louv, author of Last Child in the Woods, says that passion is lifted from the earth itself by the muddy hands of the young. If we are going to save environmentalism and the environment, we must first save an endangered indicator species, the child in nature. Now, a study done by Cambridge University in 2017 proves that young adults that spent time in nature as kids are far more likely to care about the environment into adulthood. Not only does a connection to nature create a sense of stewardship, but time in nature also contributes to a child's social, emotional, and educational development and improves their mental health. The time I spent learning about and being absorbed in nature had such a profound impact on me that my family decided we would move to Colorado, thinking that getting out of the city and into the mountains would give me far more opportunities in terms of nature education. But to our surprise, when we moved there, we found that there were no nature programs like the one that I had in Texas. And so, as you do, we decided to create our own. So, this is me at 7 years old going on a hike with our newly founded nature club. We had members of our local Audubon club take us on guided hikes. We would compete to see who had the best nature joke that week, and we would identify anything and everything we thought was interesting along the trail. Around the same time, I created my first kids' activity book, the Explore More Challenge for Kids, with a little help from my mom. This book has been my way of sharing my excitement and my love of nature and making exploring and discovery fun for other kids. Now, that book was donated by our community to every third grader in our school district. And I continued to distribute those books through that nature center up until COVID hit, and we moved to New York to be closer to family. We chose the Adirondacks because we heard about this really cool natural science museum called the Wild Center with incredible opportunities for youth and teens. Because of the Wild Center, I have had the opportunity to meet Jane Goodall and go to conferences with Al Gore, and because of the Wild Center, I'm here talking to you all today. My wish is for every kid to have a place like this. I envision bringing nature-based education to kids in every community, whether that's in a huge city or a tiny town. And my idea of how to do that is through mobile nature centers. Imagine a converted school bus, a schoolie, rolling into a neighborhood and transforming a vacant lot into a hub of nature education. Going to schoolyards, farmers markets, community events. This is a way for everyone to have access to a nature center. My dream is simple: universal access to both nature and nature education. Through initiatives like mobile nature centers, we can empower communities, educate future leaders, and ensure that nature's wonders are accessible for everyone. Thank you.
Give it up one more time for Jenna. If you want to invest in Jenna's mobile nature centers, you can find her in the Great Hall during the reception. Okay, we're on to the first of a few fun, engaging, and participatory interludes. Starting out, young filmmaker Aston Furillo, who's a junior at Northwood School in Lake Placid, uses film to document changes in ski conditions in the Adirondacks. I can tell you when I was Aston's age, a long time ago, I was really into skiing and making films too, and after watching this clip from his documentary, Thawing Trails, I am confident in telling you that Aston is not only a much better skier, but a much better filmmaker than I ever was. This film is part of the 2024 Beyond the Peaks Student Film Festival, which is a free annual program hosted by Mountain Lake PBS. It empowers teens in New York and in Vermont and in Quebec to showcase their creativity through the creation of original short films. This festival offers practical experience in filmmaking with free virtual workshops. It encourages students' interests in tech and design and new media fields to connect them with professional filmmakers. And it helps bring attention to underrepresented art forms in rural communities. So without further ado, Aston Furillo's Thawing Trails.
The Adirondack Park, nearly 6 million acres of land. It is the biggest national park in the United States. It offers some of the biggest peaks in the Northeast. Where there's peaks, there's snow. And where there's snow, there's skiing. Climate change, a phrase we've heard a lot recently. It refers to the change of temperatures and weather patterns in certain regions due to mostly natural factors. Since the start of the 19th century, humans have been playing a role in speeding up this process. The Earth is warming up. Glaciers are retreating, the ice sheets are shrinking, and annual snow coverage is decreasing. This is alarming for us skiers in the Adirondacks. We may have thought it wouldn't affect us, but now we're seeing the impact we have on our world.
Not ready for this World War II.
Haven't even started yet. Hi, I'm Mikey Mazzetti, and I live in Lake Placid, New York, and I'm a local skier at Whiteface Mountain. I've always been skiing in the Adirondacks my entire life, and it's a really beautiful place to ski with the views at the top of Whiteface Mountain, and the occasional sunny days we get there. You can see all the way into Vermont, and yeah, it's a beautiful place. My main passion is probably to be a big mountain skier, but we don't get many opportunities here in the East Coast. I started off racing, and I've always had a passion for going out and free skiing. With all the snow that has been skipping the East Coast, I don't get many opportunities to ski the slides that we have at Whiteface Mountain, and we don't get powder as much, so it's hard to train big mountain skiing and enjoy it. Climate change would definitely, if it keeps going in this path, then there will definitely be snowless winters, and the younger generations will not get to experience the beautiful winters we get for as long as we used to.
Mikey isn't the only one that feels this way. If you ask almost any local Adirondack skier, they'll tell you the same thing. These last few winters have been subpar, with less snow during the short season and spring coming up earlier. With the direction our climate is going in, will our children be able to ski?
My name's Clayton Fuller. I'm originally from Wisconsin, but I came out here to ski my freshman year, so I've been here for 3 years. With the way winters have been going so far, I think that the path we're headed down is extremely detrimental. I don't believe that my kids' children will be able to ski, and I wonder even if my children, by the time they're my age or, towards midlife, 20s or 30s, if they'll ever be able to ski. As unfortunate it is, I can do my absolute best to try to aid in climate change and make the right choices and advocate. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the larger companies who are, not following carbon emissions and not trying to at least make a step in the right direction. Solar's been around for decades, and so is wind, and they are not only more sustainable, but they're just a smarter alternative. Try to make a difference. You get solar panels. Try to eat more sustainable foods. Try to drive less, walk more, bike. And understand that we could definitely make a change in this world. But it's up to everybody to come together and see the problem and face it.
Clay is right. We can be brought together as a community to slow down this process, to slow down the warming of our planet. There are so many different alternatives for energy that aren't being used because they aren't as convenient as gas or oil. We need to forget about convenience and start using renewable power sources. This would greatly reduce emissions from the burning of fossil fuels for energy. We can slow down the rate of climate change in the Adirondacks. We just have to come together and help make a difference.
When you think of different ways to tell a story, how many mediums do you have to think of before you get to wool? It's a lot, right? Our next speaker does just that. McKaylee Glennon is a wildlife ecologist, a fiber artist, and the director of Wool and Water, a project of the Adirondack Watershed Institute at Paul Smith's College. Wool and Water is a collaborative project that blends fiber art with scientific information to create visual representations of changing water quality conditions in the Adirondacks and in the Lake Champlain Basin. By knitting and crocheting and weaving and using other fiber art, she tells the stories of our waterways and in the hopes of providing inspiration for their protection. Please help me welcome to the TEDxTupper Lake stage, McKaylee Glennon.
Who needs clean water? Only every one of us and all of life on the planet, right? This is intuitive. I don't have to convince you of the importance of clean water. Who needs yarn? What? No one needs yarn. I'm crazy, right? I promise I'm not. What if we could inspire the protection of clean water using yarn? What if I told you that wool is magic? That crafting could be a superpower? That everything you thought about knitting was wrong? I'm going to show you what wool has to do with water. I bet you thought it was nothing. Maybe the better question would be, who needs art? Together with my friends and colleagues at Paul Smith's College, we've been experimenting with using fiber art as a tool for environmental education. The inspiration for our work is clean water. What could be more important? Our beautiful campus sits on the shores of Lower St. Regis Lake, one of the thousands of lakes in the Adirondack Park, which also, by the way, has globally significant wetlands and more than 30,000 miles of rivers and streams. Glaciers were the architects of our landscapes, creating the rivers and streams. And from the original indigenous communities to the millions of visitors that come every year to kayak, paddle, fish, swim, our waters are vital to our region, critical to our identity, and creating a deep connection between us and the natural world. Water was the impetus for the creation of the Adirondack Park, and its protection is no less important today. But climate change, invasive species, road salt pollution, harmful algal blooms mean that we have to continue to work to protect our waterways. The Adirondack Watershed Institute at Paul Smith's is at the forefront of that fight. We're working on it every day, and one of the tools we're using is art. Wool and Water is a data art project. We're combining fiber art with scientific information to tell the stories of our waterways in the Adirondack Park and the Lake Champlain Basin. To talk about what water quality means in our region, illustrate the threats to our waters, and inspire their stewardship and protection. We started in 2022 on the 50-year anniversary of the Clean Water Act. And the response has been amazing. And we've been stitching the story of water with fiber art ever since. Let me show you some examples. Climate change is one of the most important impacts on our waters and lands in the Adirondacks. Here's Greta, a record of global temperature anomalies in dress format, starting in 1880, read from the top to the bottom, and illustrating just how far we're getting away from long-term normals. In recent years, they are down at the bottom. A great statement piece, no? And the Champlain ice scarf. This record begins in 1816. Each row in this scarf is a year since then. The lighter colored rows are years in which the lake froze completely. The darker ones are years when the lake did not undergo a complete freeze, which is becoming more common in recent years. These changes impact our waters and their inhabitants, the ecosystem services that they provide for us, but also our cultural traditions. Ice Fishing Blues tells the story of warming winters and what that means for one of our most enduring winter traditions. This record begins in 1899. Each hole in that scarf is a winter since that time, or a hole in the ice if you see the world the way an ice fisherman does. The ones with blue around the edges are winters in which the mean temperature was above that at which we can safely hold ice fishing derbies and competitions. These wearable and colorful and tactile pieces let us tell a story in a different and interesting way. Road salt is used on our roads in the wintertime to make them safe. It also unfortunately gets into our waters. And this has negative consequences for our waters and their creatures. This is a problem in many cold climate regions across North America and beyond. Let me tell you about the power of some salted frogs on a log to get people to think about road salt and what it means for our amphibian communities and other creatures, ourselves included. Aquatic invasive species like zebra mussel, Asian clam, water chestnut, European frogbit, have important impacts on our waters, and preventing their arrival and spread in our region is one of our most important and impactful activities. We talk about them at the boat launches with boaters. We give lectures, write reports, we do all of those things. But it turns out that nobody will stop you from putting them on a necklace or making them into beautiful pieces of wall art. Harmful algal blooms are gaining increasing attention in our region, driven in part by nutrient pollution. What if you had a harmful algal bloom bag, a HAB bag, to talk about harmful algal blooms? Each fuzzy dot in that bag is a HAB reported in Adirondack lakes since 2012. What if a beautiful shawl could be used to convey the conditions under which a HAB is likely to form? Sunlight, warm, calm waters, plus nutrients equals HAB. Imagine the conversations you could start. What if you could tell the story of nutrient pollution with a beautiful weaving of phosphorus data from a monitored tributary? Or use the tools of Irish crochet to illustrate the changing plankton communities in Lake Champlain and the increasing prevalence of cyanobacteria, or blue-green algae, also due in part to nutrient pollution. The power of these pieces has been tremendous for us. In just 2 years since the inception of Wool and Water, we've amassed a collection of more than 70 items, created by more than 30 active participants. We've exhibited all or parts of Wool and Water in more than 25 locations. We've held numerous events related to the project. We've created workshops for people of all ages, from homeschoolers to high schoolers to retirees. We've collaborated with art galleries, fiber art programs, nature centers, children's centers, museums, conferences, libraries, environmental organizations. Many of these brand new collaborations for us. We taught the entire third grade at our local elementary school about acid rain in the Adirondacks using needle felting. Little kids don't even question the combination of science and art, they just get right into it. We've worked with the world-class Youth Climate Summit program here at the Wild Center to create collaborative art around climate change. We inspired a dress made from plastics in the Great Lakes region and a data art printmaking endeavor at the University of Alabama. And because of this project, we had the opportunity to work with our friends at the Tempestry Project to bring their new normal tempestry called the Paleo here to the Wild Center. This is a climate record that begins in the year 1. It contains 2 millennia of climate data. It's 20 feet long. We displayed it here for a month. I spend a lot of time thinking about what it is about this project that people find interesting and what brings them to it. And I think part of it is that it is participatory. This is an endeavor that we've invited anybody who wants to participate, to jump on the bandwagon with us. And lots of them have taken us up on it. Anne, Carolyn, Donna, Heidi, Hallie, Jen, Joy, Kirsten, Laura, Melinda, Michaeline, Nadia, Priscilla, Sarah, Renee, just a couple of examples. Except for my mom, blue shawl, bottom row. I knew very few of these people before we started the project. The collaborative nature of this encourages people to engage with an issue that they might be interested in through a craft that they probably already love doing. Knitters and crocheters love nothing more than making things together or celebrating a cause through their particular form of art. And we are by no means exclusive to those two crafts. Beaters, felters, punch needlers, rug hookers have all joined us as a part of this project. The point is in the making and the engaging and the conversations that have developed. All those things are magic. The medium of fiber, too, I think has a special magic. There's magic in the colors and the textures and the tactile nature of these pieces. There are endless ways to convey information. This is different from art that you put on a wall with a sign that says, please don't touch. In fact, I often say, please do touch. Wool is an incredible fiber, as are many of the natural fibers that we've endeavored to use in this project. Have you ever met a sheep? Or an Angora goat like my friend Norman? They've been wearing this stuff in all kinds of weather for eons. If you've ever had a real wool sweater, you know that it will last you a lifetime. Art made of wool is art to touch and feel. Smush between your fingers, rub against your face, and then go away and figure out how you can make your own. There's another aspect to this magic that I had only a vague sense of and wasn't good at articulating until I'd had a conversation with a friend about it. And she did a much better job of explaining it than me, but essentially what she said is that these pieces are powerful and beautiful and appeal to multiple senses, but they're also difficult. They remove complacency. We can no longer claim to not understand the issue once we've seen them. But the magic is that we don't mind so much in this format. It's easier to see those difficult truths in a form like this. The pieces are beautiful and gentle and extremely powerful at the same time, just like nature. Yarn crafts are also global. They're practiced all over the world with wonderful regional flavors and varieties, but a universal understanding and an enormous community around the planet. Their social network has members from more than 200 countries or territories. More than 30,000 of them descend on Dutchess County, a few hours south of here, every year for the annual New York Sheep and Wool Festival, one of the biggest of its kind. More than 1,000 of them just went to the Shetland Islands a few weeks ago for Wool Week. This is more than your average attendance at a scientific conference. This is a craft that will bring people together, even when it means multiple forms of transportation to a tiny island archipelago high up in the North Sea, not too far from the Arctic Circle. Here's a scenario that I imagine because I know it to be a real and true possibility. I imagine walking into a train station or a cafe in another country where I don't speak a word of the language. I'm sure that I would feel intimidated, but I'm also certain that if I saw somebody sitting with their knitting or their crochet, that I wouldn't hesitate for a minute to go and sit down next to that person and pull out my project, and we would have an instant connection. We wouldn't even need to speak a word to have created that bond, although I'm sure we would attempt to, with gestures and smiles and laughs. But conversation without even a common language, that is powerful. And one last but most excellent thing about yarn crafts, and that is that they have a history of subversion. And they offer us a chance to keep that tradition of craftivism alive. Yarn crafts were instrumental in the Revolutionary War in this country, when women's knitting for soldiers helped free us from the tyranny of imported British goods. In World War II also, there's an overlap between knitting and espionage. Stitch patterns could be used to hide secret codes. The seemingly innocuous stereotype of a woman knitting could be used to cover more clandestine activities. Phyllis Latour Doyle, a British secret agent who at the age of 23 parachuted into occupied Normandy to gather intelligence in advance of D-Day, for years kept secret messages encoded on a piece of silk that she tucked into the balls of yarn in her knitting kit. Nobody ever asked to see what was in her knitting kit. Today's equivalents of these heroes might be our friends at the Tempestry Project, who have galvanized the whole planet to create daily temperature records and have taken them to state capitals and into the offices of congressmen and women. You may all recall a very famous hat that was made by the thousands and worn in the Women's March in January of 2017. Today, more than one organization will give you a grant to do a yarn bombing. These are all examples of craftivism, a way to engage with an issue that you might think is important to do so through a craft. Maybe you don't want to call your senator. Maybe letter writing campaigns are not your thing. You don't want to go to a climate march. But knit a data hat? That is the kind of activism that might get a lot of people excited. Scores of introverts, just like me, can get behind that kind of action. We stand ready with our needles and our hooks. So back to the beginning. Take yarn plus craft plus science. Mix that together with collaboration, and what you get just might surprise you. Our goal is to foster and inspire the kinds of conversations that enhance understanding of our waters, the recognition that they are faced by some of the most pressing environmental challenges of our time, and how rising to those challenges can provide solutions that help us protect this most vital part of our identity. When we ask people what it is about this project that draws them in, that makes them interested, it is always the combination of science and art together that's the top answer. Perhaps more powerfully, almost all of them report that as a result of this project, they learned more about watershed science, about how to interpret environmental data, and they've been inspired to take actions to protect clean water. I hope that you are also inspired, or at least curious. I'm certain that if you are not a knitter or a crocheter or a felter or a punch needler, I'm sure you know someone who is. After encountering our project and some of the pieces at the Adirondack Museum this past July, we overheard a little boy tell his grandma that he wanted to learn how to crochet. If I can inspire a little boy to do anything for even 5 minutes that involves no computer screen whatsoever, I consider that to be a tremendous success. So maybe you will take a look, get involved. We would love to have you. And if not this issue or this particular craft, try your hand at another. Behold the power of human creativity and the act of making that can inspire us to change the world. Our brains are hardwired both to respond to and to want to create beauty. It's an untapped natural resource. We should harness it. Thank you.
Also, hats off to all of you. Good job supporting there. Look at that. I want to say that I'm ready. I'm like hooks and needles. Here we go. Let me try to my best. I might make a scarf if I'm lucky. Our next speaker is actually going to be from a bird. So we couldn't bring you to the Wild Center without you meeting some live animals, right? This whole thing is about natural connections. And what a better way to connect with the natural world than the amazing animals that live here in our ecosystems. So we're going to be bringing on one of the Wild Center staff, Nicole Baker, to bring out one of our birds of prey so that you all can learn more about the animal-human connection, how that has shifted through history, and a little bit more about one of my favorite little birds, Zuma. Welcome, Nicole.
Alrighty, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for your energy today. My name is Nicole Baker, and I'm the Wildlife Programs Manager here at the Wild Center, which means I get to take care of all the critters you're seeing and many more who come out for programs like Zuma, the American kestrel here, a little falcon. Now, Zuma is a very special resident here at the Wild Center, so she is coming to us as a former falconry bird. Has anybody heard of falconry before? Okay, yeah, so that's the amazing art, sport, and science of people training birds of prey to hunt small game. Now, falconry has been around for centuries, you guys. It's one of the world's oldest sports, and falconry, that art, has had a profound impact on wildlife conservation. In fact, back in the day, ornithology really got its start through falconry. Many, many years ago, in like the 12th century in Europe, falconry really led the way to pave our first regulations regarding birds of prey. So back then, falconry, it was a status symbol, you guys. Only like the top-notch folks in that community were able to even have birds, and your station in life even determined what kind of bird you could fly. So, because of these cultural connections and their intense love and respect for birds, that means people really cared about these birds and protected them as such. And some of our first regulations arose all those years ago in medieval Europe with the falcatio laws, which protected falcons specifically, their nests, and even the trees in which the nests were in. And the local townspeople, the villagers, they were obliged to protect those trees with dire consequences if they failed. Not to mention, ornithologists, of course, people who study birds, one of their classic things is to band birds, put those little bracelets on their legs to track and record their date and capture. Well, that started at the end of the 19th century. But at the beginning of the 19th century in Holland, there was a hawking club that was doing it first, that practice of ringing. So they were actually ringing herons that their falcons were catching and re-releasing them to record that data and mark recapture in subsequent years. So that kind of set the stage for the beginnings of ornithology. And our first ornithological treaty did come from medieval Europe, and that was going to be based partly upon an ancient Arabic falconry manuscript. So they have had an impressive impact, falconers and their birds, on really setting the stage for wildlife conservation back then. But modern day falconers also play a pivotal role in species conservation as well. So this little bird, of course, is a falcon. And some animals are endangered for one reason or another. But falconers have helped endangered species like the peregrine falcon, for example, recover through captive breeding programs and utilizing their falconry skills to reintroduce them into the wild, replenishing those once endangered, severely endangered populations. Truly a success story. Not to mention, most of the falconers are going to be involved at one point or another with wild bird rehabilitation, caring for sick or injured birds, with the skill of falconry, not only to make sure they're healthy and fit, but able to hunt and really sustain themselves out in nature once they're released back to the wild. Some of these birds even have the dream job working with their falconers as abatement birds, meaning they get to chase things like pigeons off of airfields to increase safety measures. We don't want birds flying around the airplanes, right? Or to possibly scare off, haze, and intimidate, and of course hunt and get a meal from birds who might be destroying crop fields, causing loss of income and revenue. So these little birds can be very impressive. As small and cute as she is, I promise she is still a fearsome predator. And this kestrel has been taught to hunt other critters, of course. Now, other wild kestrels with falconers have been taught specifically to target something called a European starling. Has anybody heard of that species before? A couple of you? Well, if you haven't, I promise you have seen them before out in nature and just didn't know it. Those little birds are an invasive species, and they can do a lot of damage to habitats as well as even our infrastructure. So when falconers train their bird of prey to hunt European starlings, they're probably going to work with them for a few seasons, right? And then most of the time, falconers release their birds because the real fun is in building that relationship, training with the animal, and creating that bond. So when they get released back out into nature, they are way better hunters than their wild counterparts. And they've been shown to continually target European starlings after they've been released, contributing to the biological control of those invasive species. So overall, you guys, this ancient sport of falconry has had a profound impact on wildlife conservation. And truly, the most amazing and magical part is building that bond with a wild animal. Remember, falconry birds can fly away at any point in time, which means they choose to come back to us because of the strong bonds that we create with them. So falconry truly is a testament to the interconnectedness of nature and humanity, which is demonstrating how these connections shape our lives and our communities. So thank you all for your time, your energy, and your support today as we work together to engage ourselves with the natural world and inspire that passion for nature, while collectively inspiring work to ensure the collective success of the natural world. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Zuma. As you can see, Zuma is very well-trained and ready for the audience. Showed off a little bit there. Little behind the scenes, Nicole Baker, our biologist here, is also not only our wildlife biologist and a pro at fly fishing, but is also a beauty pageant contestant and was the person that did my makeup this morning. So, truly a Renaissance woman. So our next speakers, they're going to consider how we might act if we were actually to look through Zuma's eyes. Blake and Sinsoon are storytellers, they're movement weavers. Through their work with the environmental storytelling group, Talking Wings, they have organized conferences and curated art exhibits, produced visual storytelling pieces that share the voices of land and water. Now, as a shameless self-promoting marketing person, it is my duty to let you know that Blake and Sinsoon, along with McKaylee Glennon, are featured in the Wild Center's Climate Solutions exhibit in the Find Out Forest. So if you have not seen it yet, I encourage you to go check it out during our reception. Anyway, these two have helped found the nonprofit Talking Rivers. It's an organization that educates communities about their rights, R-I-G-H-T-S rights, and the rights, R-I-T-E-S rights of rivers and their ecosystems. We're absolutely thrilled to welcome Blake and Sinsoon, also known as Talking Wings.
Raise your hand if anyone here has talked to a tree. Now, another question. Has anyone here talked to a river? Now, has anyone here talked to one of these?
It is a little ironic that we find it normal to speak to an inanimate object. made of plastic and metal, and it is considered strange to talk to the living beings who are part of our ecosystem and community. Yes, we mostly use these objects to talk to family, friends, or loved ones. The result, however, is that we spend most of our days staring at screens, consumed by the spectacle of our avatar inhabiting a virtual world. We are constantly bombarded by images. From social media feeds to dramatic newscast footage, we are perpetually connected to the stream of information our society produces. We also have voices constantly talking in our ears. There's never silence in our lives or in our heads. All the while, society splits apart.
We are more and more divided across invisible borders of party lines and ideologies. People who could unite and work together for the good of their community fight. This happens because the media machine, the podcasts we listen to, the newscasts we read and watch, and the social media we utilize has figured out what sells. When we are angry, they make money, and we forget to look up at the world.
For this reason, we have a wish we would like to share with you all today. If I were a seagull, what would I see? How would the world look as I soar? The wind in my wings, the tail of a fish, a ripple in the water, a trail in the sand, a starfish, and then perched on a rock, staring into the distance, or singing with friends. How would the world look if I were a seagull and didn't have to pretend?
If I were an otter, what would I see? The free-flowing water of a stream or the immensity of a deep blue sea. My feet in the snow, my wet fur, the bubbles that race me as I swim, as I turn. Would I feel free in my endless plunging? Would I feel loved by family and friends, those with whom I play and it doesn't look like I pretend? Is the water blue or murky brown? Do I like mud, the wet ground? Is the sun yellow, the sky so blue that they are a roller coaster of swirling hues? What would the world look like if I were an otter and had the strength to just be?
If I were a chipmunk, what would I see? The rusty color of fallen leaves, pine needles, curving ferns, and logs turning to mulch on the wet earth. The strawberries so red, the trees so tall, and a constant need to run and explore. Would I see details clear and sharp, pictures no human eye has ever beheld? Or will it be all a blur, a phantasmagoria of patches and swirls? Will the world run as fast as my paws, jumping and turning as I hop? What would I see if I were a chipmunk, just for a little bit?
If I were a turtle, what would I see? Would I move to the rhythm of a melody only I could hear? The spongy ground of a pond, the lilies blooming, the fish swimming, the dragonflies flying, and me waiting. My shell like a rock, my head looking up, the sky in my eyes, the sky in the water, the clouds sailing by. If I were a turtle, what would I see? Would I know the difference between being here and in between? Would I be present like never before? For every minute is an entire history about to unfold.
If I were a firefly, what would I see? Would I know the night is alight with millions of beings like me? Would I feel them fly by my side, keeping the rhythm of pulsing light? And how will the darkness look like? Will there be an opportunity to shine? If I were a firefly, how would the world be? Would I look up at the sky and wonder if the universe is made of billions of pinpricks shining like me.
If I were a tree, what would I see? Darkness stretching to the tips of my roots as I explore the depths of my world. Fungi and so many other teeny beings telling me stories, giving me tips. And then all the other trees, one single unity in this forest of ramifying limbs. What is the color of sunlight? Green, like my leaves? What does the rain taste like? Sweet, like the sap, like my lymph? How would the world be if I could just be a tree? I guess it wouldn't matter what I would see, because I would be part of something bigger, so much bigger than just me.
If I were the ocean, what would I see? Continents, reefs, endless skies, and a myriad of living beings. And then when I evaporate and turn into a cloud, a world that never stops breathing, turning, living. A word that I will rejoin falling. Rain on the ground, rain on the trees, the grass, the streams, and everything else that stands in between. But I'm not the ocean, nor a cloud in the sky. I am not a tree or a turtle swimming by. I am not a chipmunk or a playful otter. I am not a seagull sailing the currents of the wind. I am something else, and I have forgotten how to see.
I am a human. And what do I see? Endless streaks of light haunting me everywhere I turn. I'm surrounded by screens. My car zooms down the street, and I see only the patchwork of a world I barely remember how to greet. Animals lie flat under my tires. But I don't weep. I keep on looking forward, looking up to the light of the next screen. I see only the picture of the world I live in, and I am numb to the scope of everything I miss. My stare is fixed. My eyes are tired. And I can only imagine what it would mean to borrow the life of another, because mine is all but expired. Yet, I wish I could revert this. If I could just get away from the screen and start again and ask,
I am a human. What do I see? I see trees standing tall around me. I smell the sweet scent of the ground. I hear the gurgle of water in a stream. I see chipmunks running, frogs hopping as I disturb their slumber when I come around, while moss, ferns, and mushrooms cover every inch of the ground. I am a human. What do I see? I see birds flying high above the leaves. I hear the wind, I feel the sun, I taste the rain on my lips. And then I see the others, all around me, all humans, all part of this world, other animals, just like me.
So, when we feel anger and we want to fight, we need to take off the human lenses. Through these human-centric lenses, we see ourselves, humans, in the spotlight. Looking through these lenses, we see our own personal needs and the needs of a human society.
What if we look through the lenses of otters and seagulls? What if we considered the needs of turtles from a turtle's perspective? In the environmental sphere, we are usually caught satisfying human needs, believing that we need forests or rivers because they provide recreation or physical and spiritual well-being. we protect them to satisfy our own needs. But what if we protected the needs of the fireflies? What if we saw the world through the fireflies' eyes?
Through this ecocentric perspective, we see a world of living beings in which we're all woven together in an immense tapestry of life. We, as humans in this society, have the power to stand up for the ecosystems we are a part of. We can stand up to speak for rivers, to speak for trees.
But how does this look in practice? When we are going about our daily lives, we can remember that we are not just living and acting for ourselves. The decisions we take affect the entire planet, which means we should ask, where are the products I'm buying coming from? How did they get to me? Who got them to me? And how much land was destroyed for me to have access to such a variety of goods?
This also applies to the workplace. What if we took decisions in our businesses and organizations considering the needs of rivers and other living beings? Instead of valuing more products, activities, wealth, and gadgets, what if we value the health of human and other than human communities? What if we acted thinking, what would the river do? What does the river need from me?
Does the river need an environmental NGO to print plasticized flyers with toxic chemicals? Does the river need an organization dedicated to protecting the river to build on top of the same ecosystem they're trying to restore? Do we and the ecosystems we inhabit need all the new computers to survive? Computers built with resources extracted by slaves. If the river was on a board of directors, if entire corporations were tasked to act in the river's name, humans will have the responsibility to satisfy the river's needs. Our economy and bureaucracy will have to acknowledge and respect the rights and needs of all the beings that make up our world.
And what about the laws? What would the river say if, represented by a human guardian, they were part of the governing body of a municipality? What would they say if they were part of a court of law? In this society, we humans have civil rights, agreements between ourselves and the communities we live in. If rivers are part of our communities, they also have rights, and we have the responsibility to honor them.
And now, we come back to the beginning, acknowledging once again that we live in a divided society. Alterity is the concept of otherness. It is usually defined by nationalities, community norms, or belief systems. In many cases, the other is the enemy. Since we, humans, can remember, we have acted violently against the other. This violence continues to this day as the walls that divide us get taller and taller. However, if we expand the concept of community, if we listen to the voices of our more than human neighbors, even the barriers between us wash away.
What if we sat down, putting away all technology, to discuss what makes us human and connects us to each other? What if we sat down and considered how we're connected to land and water? If we had conversations from the ground up, thinking about how we're all part of a shared ecosystem and community, violent discourse fades away. Instead of rivals, we would see fellow living beings, humans, just like ourselves.
And this would be our opportunity to honestly ask each other, what do you need? How can we make things better for you, for me, and everyone else? What world do we want future generations to live in? And like this, we can step beyond all borders, walls, and screens. The universe is waiting. Thank you.
Wow, what a great way to conclude our speaker block 1. How is that? Not bad for a start? Don't you worry, we have a lot more in store for this evening, but I think we need to stretch, right? Okay.
Now's your time. Stand up, stretch your legs, introduce yourself to your neighbor, use the restroom if you need to. Anything that you need in order to make yourself feel comfortable for speaker block 2. This intermission will be 15 minutes. We ask you to please be seated in 15 minutes. Thank you.